We're going to do Unit 8, Activity 1. So the first one we do is the open up Unity. We double click on the Unity icon, and then we have this launch, and we click the New button. So we're going to name our project Capsule or whatever you'd like. I'm going to call this one Activity 1. So I just click Create Project. So we're going to do just like we've been doing in the lesson 8. We're going to create a plane to act as a playfield in our game world. Then we're going to create a 3D capsule for our player avatar and give both of these a color. So we're going to make a platform game with a scrolling playfield. And we're going to want the playfield to be really, really, really long. We're going to have the player start at one end and keep progressing to the other end of the screen. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to come up to Game Object up here. And we're going to click on 3D Object. And we're going to put a plane up here. And I'm going to click on the Inspector view over here on my right. I'm going to click Inspector so I can see the properties of my plane. So what I'm going to do is I come down here on the lower left hand side under the Create tab. I'm going to click Create. I'm going to choose a material. I'm going to call this ground. And I'm going to come over here to this side. Okay, see where I have up here this little white square called albedo? And I click that and it's going to bring me up kind of a rainbow. So what color do I want my ground? I know some of you have imported different materials such as rocks and grass and that. But I'm just going to put a green background here. So I click on the green part of the rainbow. Then I click whatever green color I like. That looks good to me. So now I'm going to click on the ground asset here, and I'm going to drag it onto my plane. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up the plane again and click on plane. And now I'm going to scale the X feature. See over here I have X-axis at 1. I'm going to make that 100. So now it's nice and long. Okay? So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put me a capsule on the ground. Now if you want to be using your cube that you made with the class project where we started in the lesson, you can use the cube. It's fine with me. Alright, I'm going to do click here, Asset, Game Objects, 3D Object, and I'm going to choose a capsule. Now I'm going to bring the capsule up to Y position 1. I want to raise it up. And I want to give it a color. So once again I go down to Create. And I can click up here, Material. I'll just call it Capsule. And then once again, I'm clicking on the albedo to find my rainbow color. I can make it whatever color I want. It's my capsule. So I'm going to make it a nice yellow color. So I'm just going to find me a color I kind of like. Yeah, that's nice. So I click on the capsule and I drag it onto the capsule. Okay? I go back to the plane and I'm going to set the plane's position on the x-axis to 490. So the capsule starts at one end of my play field. So here I'm going to change the x to 490. So I'm all the way to the end. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a script. So I want it to belong to the capsule. So I click Add Component here. I come all the way down the list and click New Script. So this new script I'm going to call is called Player Handler. One word, Player Handler, just like that. And I just click the Create and Add. Now I have part of my capsule, the Player Handler script. Okay, so I'm going to double click the Player Handler to open up a Visual Studio. Now what they want you to do is add some scripts for the capsule jumping, but we're not going to get that far, so we don't need to add that script, okay? But one script that we do need to add is a speed script. So right here on line 6, right under Player Class, Player Handler, Mono Behavior, I'm going to write a speed. Okay, I gotta put public. Float. It's not going to be an integer, it's going to be a decimal. That's why it's a float. And we're just going to call this speed. And we're going to set our speed to 5. You can set it to any particular, you try different numbers you want. You find something that's fast enough for yourself. But I'm going to add 5. Okay, another thing we're going to do is we're going to add the rigid body element. Okay, we're going to need that because not because we're jumping, we're not going to jump, but we want to add it for our boundaries because we will set boundaries later on. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to set a variable for the rigid body object, and I'm just going to call it private, and we're going to call it rigid body RB. Okay, all we're doing is we're going to go into Unity and get what we want for the properties we want for the rigid body, such as the boundaries, okay, that kind of thing. So what I'm going to do is under Start here, I'm going to say refer to the component rigid body in Unity. So this is how it's going to look. RB is equal to get component. So it's a reference to Unity. So I'm going to put in the greater and less than symbols here and just put in rigid body. I don't need to define this for the program because it already knows what I'm talking about. So, and when I end the command, I just put in a semicolon and I'm done. So I go back into Unity. So I selected the capsule, then I'm going to select component, I go to physics, and I go to rigid body. So then you're going to see the rigid body component up here in the inspector view here. So I'm going to set the mass to 20. I'm going to set the drag to 0.64. And I'm going to freeze the position on the X axis and rotation on the Y axis. So I click down Constraints. I freeze the position on the Z axis unless you tend to move it left and right. Okay? So I'm going to freeze the rotation on the X, Y, and Z axis. Okay? We don't want to rotate, and we don't want it to move to the left and right. Oh, I haven't saved this. Let me go back to, see, it doesn't show the new stuff right here, so I haven't saved it. So I'm going to go back to activity 1. And I'm going to click Save All, the double save buttons. And I'm going to go back to Unity. Now I can see this code here. So I'm all ready to submit activity 1. So all I have to do, I click my search. And I look for snip, for my snipping tool. Grab my snipping tool. I click New. Then I just choose the code and the capsule picture. And I just click Save. That's all I need to do. And I'm done with this part of the section. So I just save it where I can find it. I'm going to put mine in Assignments. And I'm just going to call this Activity 1. To save the whole thing and send it would require me to save the whole Unity folder, all the Unity folders. And you really don't want to do that when all you need to do is take a snapshot, okay? That's Activity 1.